Our next speaker is Dr. Hakim Haseed, who's played a really pivotal role in developing the Falcon series of large language models, a really groundbreaking initiative that's garnered so much global attention. Now, Dr. Haseed is going to share some insights on how the Falcon models are democratizing access to AI through their open source approach, fostering innovation across the developer community and addressing real-world challenges.
Good afternoon. Really glad to be here today with you. Thank you for the ones who waited until now. The room starts to be a little bit empty, but that's normal after the lunch and the long time. So this is Hakim. I'm from the Technology Innovation Institute. So I'm handling the team working on Falcon. So I have so many things to say, but I will try to say them in a very short time. I just have 15 minutes. The objective is just to give an overview of what we are doing on the open source, the efforts we are making to try to support the AI. When we mention open source AI, what comes to mind? Maybe no business opportunities? Who thinks this? No? Well, people also think that the performance is really bad on the open source systems, right? Who thinks this? Okay, we have one who thinks this, which is not true, by the way. Okay, good. So I'm trying to move, but it doesn't move for some reasons. No, it doesn't move. And we're supposed to talk AI, right? Sorry? When it's come to adoption of technology, something different from... That's true. So we're going faster than the technology. So for the technical guys, the slides are not... good. OK, so I will be talking about open source AI. So just the way we see AI, basically, and the recipe for a successful LLM. So we always look at the models, right? But we have actually more than that. In usual, that's what I call the 5 pillars, actually, of the LLMs and the AI. The first one is necessarily the data, right? The reason we are here today building these models is because we have a lot of data, and we have enough data to represent the world to be able to build such models. That's not a simple task. That's not a simple thing to do, because putting data in the model is not enough. Knowing what kind of data and what type of data we need to put in the model is the key at the end of the day. The second thing, and we had some speakers who spoke about the transformer, the attention, so on and so forth, is the algorithmic part at the end of the day. So the way we process the information, the way we link the information together is the second key to have a successful LLM. And the third one is, of course, the compute. People who do not have compute today, they cannot do AI. I'm sorry to say that. It's extremely hungry in terms of compute, and not having the necessary or enough compute will not help anyone to do it. And this is why somehow the closed source models are doing slightly better than the open source models that we have today. The fourth one, and many mentioned it during the day today, is the talent. I don't know how many of us in the room have tried to hire people who are in AI, but it's an extremely difficult task. Actually, it's difficult because also everybody is putting AI in the CV. So it's hard actually to find and to understand who is really in AI and who is not. You have even CVs of people who tell you, like, we have 10 years of experience in LLMs, just in LLMs, right? Which is difficult to just notice. And we see also in the companies at the end of the day, many people, the hiring managers, whenever they see LLM on the CV, they take the guys quickly, right? So I think it works somehow, but finding the right ones who can build the AI, who can understand the AI, evaluate and help to evolve the AI is extremely difficult. The last one is something that we forget a lot. And this is where the marketing, I think, works a lot at the end of the day, is the distribution. The distribution channels are extremely important to get this AI between the hands of the end users. be it businesses or just simple users at the end of the day. So the combination of all these pillars and these items is the right combination of these ones is the reason to get a successful AI or a successful LLM at the end of the day. Then we have a lot of, how to say, the stakeholders around this AI. And I will get to the open source part, actually, why it is important, right? So the data owners, at the end of the day, are key players in this part. So when we build these models, currently, we are using, actually, most of the data that is out there, we have it with us. The issue is that we are hitting limitations, or we are hitting sort of a limit in terms of what we can do with this data. Now we need to get into a step where we use data that is not necessarily public, that is not necessarily there. So this is where the people are heading to, and the ones who have the data actually are the ones who can control part of the equation that we have. Getting this data for people who build models is not easy. So everybody is trying to hide the data and keep it with them. So this is an important part of this ecosystem. The second thing that we have is the hardwares. The hardware is becoming sort of an exceptional item to have. So we have a lot of constraints to get access to the hardware. Even sometimes when you have the necessary budget, it's not necessarily easy to access to the GPUs, H100, B200, whatever we want to talk about. So these players also are important in the chain and in the ecosystem that we are having. The third one are the scientists and the developers, as I said before, related to the talents. The fourth one is the business. So currently, we are solving actually problems, in my opinion, that are not challenging enough. So the AI is there, and everybody is happy to talk to a chatbot, for example, to solve a question that is related to an exam for students, right? So I think we need to look into more challenging examples, more challenging use cases, and this is where the businesses need to get in and see how they could test, actually, and they could help improving this AI. The community organization, we have a lot of, let's say, organizations around the AI, around the open source AI, and everybody is claiming that they are doing AI. So we need to organize a little bit the community in a better way to make sure that we are getting into more interesting stuff. Examples of that, I think we have a lot to learn, for example, from the software foundations that we have. The Linux Foundation is an example of that. The AI community is not that well structured for the moment, and there are a lot of efforts, luckily, in that, but we still have some time at the end of the day. We have the end user. I think we are all working towards the same objective, to satisfy the end user and understand what this end user wants. But for the time being, actually, from the AI perspective, the end user becomes like an experimental rat in the lab, right? So we just send a lot of signals and trying to see how these users will react at the end of the day. I did a quick sort of illustration of what is open source and what is not. First of all, the thing we need to understand is that this open source is coming from the software community, right? Software engineering community, where we have actually, it's a very simple equation there, where you have the code, the source code, is open for people to see, to work on it, to play with it, to modify it, so on and so forth. So we have inherited this concept of open source AI from the software engineering world. But the equation in the AI world is completely different. So the first question we could ask ourselves, what should we open in the AI? So the process of the building an AI is much more complex than the one we have for the developing softwares and developing programs, right? So you have different steps there, as you can see in the figure. So you have first the data, you have to clean your data, you have to select your data, you have then to train the model. Once you are training the model, you have to evaluate it, you have to fine-tune it, and at the end, you have to distribute it. So when we talk about open source, what are we open sourcing here? So most of the players currently, we are open sourcing the model with the weights. From the TII side, we have also open sourced some of the data that we have been using to train these models, but many are saying it's not enough. We have to share everything that is there. I think we need to be reasonable at some point and see what are the things that can really be open sourced and what are the things that we are not open sourcing, as we understand it today. So we look into different things and we see like, actually there is nothing that is totally open source at the end of the day. We do not give the whole information. When I say we, it's basically everybody working, building these LLMs, be it us or Llama or anyone that you have there in the community. We see the same thing in the publication and the academic contribution to the field. We are seeing most of the things that are open here, they are on the evaluation and the fine-tuning. But there is a reason for that also, right? As I mentioned before, the compute is a key aspect to build these models. And unfortunately, the academics, they don't have that amount of resources to be able to work and build these models, but they are extremely open. So we are doing a lot of progress thanks to what the academics are doing in the evaluation and the fine-tuning aspects. So there is a lot of efforts to be done there, but again, I think we need to be reasonable at some point on what should we open and what shouldn't be open. There is a lot of and a long debate around these things, a lot of round tables, conferences like this where we are trying to debate what should be open or not. But the nice thing is that I'm confident, I'm happy to see that the UAE is taking a lead position when it comes to the open source. We are fully committed to have an open source. We cannot be the only ones who are opening everything at once, but I think there is a progress that needs to be coming. The reason I'm saying all these things, because we are working on the Falcon again. For those who are not familiar with Falcon, I think there was a talk this morning from Dr. Najwa who mentioned this, but we have 3 generations of Falcon. 2 are already sort of released. The 3rd one should be released very soon. So we started when these models have started actually with the 1st generation, where the objective actually at the time was mainly to just take a training code, combine it with data, throw everything on a lot of GPUs, and see what will come out, right? So we had good results at the time, but then quickly came the issue of how to use these models at the end of the day, right? Are they usable? Can I run something on these models? So we went to the 2nd generation, where actually we reduced the size of the model and we increased the capabilities of these models when we released Falcon 2, and we have added also other modalities. The other thing we have done is to look into how to make these models more efficient with a different architecture, something that is different from the transformer, from the attention, so on and so forth. And we were the first actually to get the Falcon Mamba, that is an attention-free model out there in the market. And this is very important, actually. That's why I wanted to mention this one. The underlying principles are coming from the open source community, right? So we took what was there in the open source community, and nobody was able to scale it up. And this is where we scaled it up, and we put it back to the community again so that we can get more interesting stuff. You have a new version also that will be released very soon with a higher performance on that. There is the next generation that will be released in the next weeks. That's the Falcon 3. That should be the most powerful open source that you will get in the market for the next few weeks. But again, it is important to understand this relationship between what we are doing, giving to the open source community, and then getting some lessons and knowledge from the open source community so that we can do all these kind of things. Challenges for the open source community. The compute is a huge challenge for everyone. So you can have developers and AI engineers who are extremely, extremely good. Unfortunately, they don't have access to the compute, so they cannot run anything at the end of the day. You can have a small GPU on your laptop, but these kind of things, they don't need one GPU. They need hundreds and thousands of GPUs to be running, and we are working a lot on these kind of things. The quality of the outcomes, at least from a perception perspective, we have a lot of people who think that the closed source models are actually much better than the open source model. That's not the case at all anymore. In the beginning, that was the case. It was the case because actually the closed source community has started way before the open source. But now things are getting extremely close to each other. We have issues on the IP. Whenever you discuss with someone, the data has an IP, the code has an IP, so on and so forth. So we need actually to work a little bit more on that. And I will jump quickly on the politics. I think everybody is aware about that. Should we have open source models or no? That's a big debate that is happening anywhere in the world. I think Europe is the worst, but there is a lot of debate there that may have a risk actually to really slow down the innovation around this open source. So quickly, the efforts that we are doing are mainly around the Falcon Foundation. TII has set up a Falcon Foundation where actually we are supporting developers. For the time being, we are supporting by providing compute. We believe that ideas can come from anyone, and we are giving a lot of compute for developers, for good ideas, basically. The only two conditions that we have is that the work has to be done on Falcon, and it has to be re-injected back in the community as an open source. It's not something that will be kept there. So these are the different this is the mandate of the Falcon Foundation. Again, at its heart, we are helping the developers and the community to support this movement around the open source AI and to make sure that AI is accessible for everybody. I don't have time anymore, but I will just go quickly on these things. There is a high potential in the open source AI. So we really, and TII believes in the open source AI. The reason, again, is that, first of all, it's wrong to say that we can solve all the problems by ourselves, right? There are so many problems to be solved, and we believe by putting everybody together, by providing also the necessary support for the best ones to work and to unlock issues in this community, this is how we will be succeeding. We have a lot of things to be done in the open source AI community. The first one will be structuring this community, and as I said, there is a lot of effort that is done there. You have a lot of challenges, of course, that's normal. One of them is the closed source kind of AI. It's a big issue because it gives a wrong sense of security, of trust, and this kind of things. And we need to work a little bit more towards making people understanding what is the interest of the open source AI. And I just finished by saying that TII, we believe in the open source. We will continue releasing our models as open source, and we will hope that we will get more and more people who are interested in this open source community. Thank you very much.